So farmers markets are one of the most popular venues for direct sales, and they can be temporary or permanent and are generally open once or twice a week for a set period of time during a local growing season. And selling at farmers markets has advantages as well as challenges. Some of the advantages are increased profitability. You don't have to deal with the middleman, so there's the potential to allow you to increase your share of the consumer's dollar. And then also selling directly to consumers can be a more enjoyable experience because you get face-to-face interaction that you don't get when you deliver it to a processor. So on the other hand, when you do sell directly, you become responsible for permits and licenses that you don't have to consider when you deliver your products to the processor and leave them there. You're also responsible for booth rental, creating signage, setting up your booth, and pricing. So our next speakers are going to go into detail about some of these advantages and challenges. Before I pass it over to them, though, I did want to mention the Alabama Farmers Market Authority. The website is right there. It would be a great resource for anyone considering selling at a farmer's market. All right, so I am going to pass it to Heather Pritchard. First, she is the market manager of the Coastal Alabama Farmers and Fishermen's Market. She's going to give us an overview of the requirements for participating in farmers markets and a little bit about their experience there. And then following Heather, we'll have Phyllis Finn, who is a standardization officer at the Alabama Department of Health, and she'll give us more detail about the requirements for selling at a farmers market. If you do have questions during the presentations, just type those in the chat box, and we'll get to those at the very end. And finally, I did want to mention we'll have a short survey at the end. We'll post a link to it. And if you could just take a minute or two and answer that, we'd really appreciate it. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Heather Pritchard.
Okay. Thank you, Tara. As you mentioned, I'm the Farmers Market Manager for the new Coastal Alabama Farmers and Fishermen's Market. The Farmers Market Authority is whom we work directly under, as is most all farmers markets in Alabama. They have mostly the same rules and regulations. And each farmers market has their own little details as well. Direct marketing is critically important for making retail dollars, which are considerably more than paying someone to ship, deliver, or taking in those costs yourself. Farmers markets in general are a place for business incubation. A lot of businesses here have gotten started and have grown to have other markets, either other stores have come and seen them and wanted to buy from them, or there's just a lot of different ways where they get the word out that they have a legitimate business and a wonderful product. Product introduction is also very important for all of the farmers market. It gives people the opportunity to share their agriculture products and test the market and see if it's something that the public likes. It could be a certain type of heirloom tomato or a certain type of honey, to see whether they want to go further with that product and test it out, because there's not as much risk when you're setting up for one day and kind of seeing how it will do. It is also a place for you to promote your business. It gives you the opportunity to create marketing materials, communicate with the public, and get the word out that you have this wonderful product and it's available here. And certainly retail dollars. We sell seafood at this market, which is very unique to other markets because we're down here on the coast, and there's a lot of people that bring seafood here directly from the Gulf, and their requirements are a little bit different than aquaponics. You have an agriculture product in which doesn't require a business license. These have to have a business license, seafood dealer's license, or a captain's vessel license, things like that. But the food safety is very, very similar. In fact, it's the same as to how you handle the product outside at the farmer's market for 4 or 5 hours. Through the Farmers Market Authority, from agricultural products, what we require is a grower's permit. These can be obtained from your local agricultural extension office. They are free, but they must be notarized. And the reason why they must be notarized is because it states that you are the bona fide producer of the crop. So it is basically taking your word saying that I produce this fish in my pond. And as a farmer's market manager, I generally visit all of our farms and verify that again myself. And it also helps me be able to share with others how wonderful your farm and operation is. The major requirement is that your product needs to be processed at an inspected facility. The health department states that fish or fishery products that have been processed, which means any additional handling that changes the product, such as filleting or heading, must come from an establishment that has a permit from the Alabama Department of Health. These processing facilities also have requirements. As with any type of crop, you have to keep up with your MSDS and these types of things. So your labels for your medicines or herbicides must be followed for harvest intervals. And you must be able to verify that you've complied with your labels to the processor. And this is generally called a supplier's guarantee. And it is also a very important HACCP requirement for processing facilities. They have requirements as well. At the farmer's market, your aquaculture products can be sold a couple of different ways. They can be sold fresh if they are maintained, and they come to the market at under refrigeration at 37 to 41 degrees, or you can bring them frozen and maintain them frozen if possible. Okay, other health department requirements are that they must stay refrigerated. And here, even I go around and check all my vendors to make sure food safety rules are followed, in that the coolers must be drained and fresh ice must be applied throughout a market day. This ensures the quality and temperature, and the melted water is generally just inappropriate and kind of yucky. But we want it to look fresh and clean, and it's a requirement. So throughout the 4 or 5 hours that you may be at a farmer's market, you want to care for your product throughout the day by getting rid of that drain water and taking it to an appropriate drain on site or somewhere off site. Your area that you're here, it's about a 10 by 12 area that you have. It needs to be maintained clean, and that so nothing smells bad or nothing is offensive. So we want to dump that water in a place that's not close by. All of these products must be individually packaged and sealed, and how you have your processor package your things is up to you. You could do it in pounds or 1.5 pound bags or whatever you think will sell, and then you can price them appropriately. Okay, to participate at the Coastal Alabama Farmers and Fisheries Market, we allow people to come from a 100-mile radius of where we are in Foley, Alabama. I would certainly allow people to come from further distance than 100 miles, but generally people don't drive more than 100 miles to come and sell for 4 or 5 hours. So you can apply online at our website, coastalalabamamarket.com. and click submit. It comes straight to me. You want to read the rules and regulations, and upon being accepted, have your grower's permit, and of course your product. Follow all the food safety guidelines that I had aforementioned, and really enjoy. As Tara mentioned earlier, it is really an enjoyable experience to participate. The camaraderie of the other people that are like you, that provide food, local food. When they all come together, it creates a market that is a very unique food buying experience. We want to know where our food comes from. as customers. We read labels. We get to talk directly to the person that sells. But you can also trade. That happens a lot at our farmers market. You bring your fish or your shrimp, and then you can trade for organic beef, pork, lamb, honey, jelly, bread, produce, all of the things that we try to diversify the market so that it has all the main food groups, because we do have producers in our area. And ultimately take home retail profit. As you mentioned, there's no middleman. It's all your money as far as pricing and marketing. There are no particular rules. I certainly don't tell people what they can and can't charge at the market for their product. Only they know what their product is worth and what they put into it. So do your research and look at other markets and see what a similar product costs per pound, or you could sell it per piece even. Even the way that you sell it is your choice. So, but certainly take into consideration general business principles, and that you want to take into account the input that you put into this project, and the labor and the time that you put into it, the time that it costs you to sit up here, and of course gas getting here. All of these things are important, because ultimately you're running a business and you're trying to make money. So another thing is marketing. I've seen people just do wonderful jobs and others don't. Farmers are generally not necessarily salespeople. They're farmers, and so with that, there's other ways to deal with it. Your presentation and your etiquette and the cleanliness of your booth. You may have marketing material that shares information if you're not a big talker. But people really like information as consumers at the farmers market. That's really why they come. They want to see and know where their food comes from. If you did have competition here in the market, which sometimes a little healthy competition is not too bad. We may have 2 people selling honey, or 3 people selling different types of tomatoes. Generally, you want to be friendly, and you do kind of pay attention what the going price of things are. So price gouging is not really all that nice. But a little healthy competition is usually not bad, and true that it gives people choices. They also like choices. So having more than one vendor selling the same type of thing is okay. Not too much, but we do create variety here. But your display and your marketing, and most importantly, if you're really trying to build a business, being consistent and coming on a regular basis. It's so disappointing for the customer when they love your product and they come the next week and you're not there. They may have come up just to see you and just to get your product, and if you're consistent, then you'll have repeat customers that literally come and buy your product every single week. Here are some resources. Of course, there's my information. But if you look on the Farmers Market Authority website that was mentioned earlier, there's a list of certified farmers markets in Alabama. Pretty much all of them are there. And you do want to appreciate the certified farmers market. It's a little more structured. There's opportunities available through the organization, such as the capabilities to take food stamps. Let's see what else. You can do senior market nutrition programs. There's several things on that website where they help care for their producers and provide them with benefits. So, and I also put Nan Steedley's name on here. She is in our area with the Alabama Department of Health, and she takes care of the seafood branch and would be able to identify processors in our area. But there are Department of Public Health everywhere. If you'll look for your seafood branch, usually in the environmental division, they will have a plethora of information for you as well as far as food safety if you're unclear of what needs to be done, or if you're looking for a processor. And here's just a picture of all the different products that are market. So if you have any questions, I think you'll have time to ask me at the end. And that's all I have for today.
All right. Thank you so much, Heather. So, yes, if anyone has any questions, just hold those for the end. And then now we are going to hand it over to Phyllis Finn, who is with the Alabama Department of Public Health.
Okay. Thank you, Tara. Let's see, share my desktop.
There you go.
Alrighty. I'm going to X out of that, close this current tab, and then get this thing going here. Can you guys see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. All right. My name is Phyllis Finn. I work with the Bureau of Environmental Services with the Alabama Department of Public Health, and thank you for having me today, Tara. And what I'm going to share today is just the basics. If you are interested in getting a permit from the health department, the basics of what the requirements are and what the food code says. So what are the health department requirements for retail food sale? You must obtain a food permit from the local county health department. And just to kind of reiterate what Heather mentioned earlier, each county in the state of Alabama has a local county health department, and each county health department is where you obtain your food permit if you operate in that county. Our seafood branch, Heather mentioned Nan Steedley, she handles the processing for Baldwin and Mobile County. So if you're going to be a seafood processor in Mobile and Baldwin County, then you would go through Nan. If you're going to be a retail establishment, and like what you see at Winn-Dixie or any of the other grocery stores when you have like the seafood market, if you have like a market like that, then you would go through the county health department, just to clear that up so there's no confusion. But yes, you do have to have a permit from the health department. And so what are the steps that you have to take? That's not hard. There's an application, and the application is on our website, adph.org. You fill out the application and you submit a set of plans. Okay, your set of plans need to show the proposed location of all the equipment, sinks, restrooms, storage areas, plumbing, lighting, etc. The plans should include a site plan showing your entire lot so that we have a good idea of where the garbage, storage area, and other significant items such as a grease trap or anything else that might be pertinent to your operation. The plan review, once you submit your set of plans, the plan review is done by the county health department to verify the proposed establishment meets the requirements of the Food Establishment Sanitation Rules. And you may want to check with your health department if you're submitting, like if you're building something from the ground up, you may want to check and see if an architectural seal is required. But the basic requirements for your establishment, there's several different categories that we review, and one of the first is plumbing and water supply. And of course, the water supply must come from an approved source, such as city water. If you are out and city or county water is not available, you can operate an establishment on a private well. There's guidance that we can provide for checking your well, and the food code requires that you have like a test of your water annually to make sure that your water's safe. And then you have to, of course, install the plumbing according to the local code. You have to have enough hot water to provide all that's necessary during peak demands of operation and cleaning. You have to provide a vacuum breaker at each hose connection or at any any point where the faucet would be below the flood rim, like for instance, if you have like one of those sprayers at a sink, like at your 3-compartment sink, for instance, if the end of that sprayer will go down below the flood rim of that sink, then you have to have a backflow preventer built into that sprayer. Those are things that we would look for because we don't want to have any back siphonage issues in your establishment. You have to provide hot and cold water to all the sinks through a mixing valve, and you have to provide indirect drains for all equipment requiring drainage, such as ice machines and dishwashers and things like that. Sewage disposal. Heather touched on that a little bit. She said you can't just dump that fish water anywhere. We require that go to a sanitary sewer. We don't want to dump that stuff out on the ground and attract flies and vermin and other things. So we require that all sewage, including mop water and wastewater, be disposed into a sanitary sewer or a health department approved septic tank system. And basically what I just said, you can't deposit it on the ground. We don't want to attract bugs. And the health department's environmentalists can give you specific requirements for grease traps and septic tanks if you're not on a city sewer system. Floors, walls, and ceilings, they have to be constructed of something that's durable, smooth, and an easily cleanable material. Restrooms, the number of restrooms required by local plumbing code, but at the very least, so there's one. Storage, provide enough dry storage area for the intended operation, and lighting. Of course, you need enough light to see what you're doing. So you have to have at least what we would call 50-foot candles where the employees are working. And of course, you have to provide good lighting in food handling, food storage, and equipment cleaning storage areas. And that lighting has to be shielded. Okay, garbage, outside garbage containers must be stored on a substantial pad of sealed concrete or machine-laid asphalt. So you don't necessarily have to have a curbed dumpster pad if you've got a machine-laid asphalt parking lot. The dumpster can sit on that, but you could talk to your health department official about the requirements for dumpster pads. And then you have to provide hot water and wastewater disposal facilities for cleaning containers. And that can consist of a mop sink or a can wash, whichever you prefer. Ventilation, very important that all rooms, including the storage room, are to have a sufficient ventilation to keep them free from excessive heat, steam, or obnoxious odors, fumes, and smoke. Cooking equipment, if you have cooking equipment, must be installed under a ventilation hood with removable filters that's vented to the outside. If a water condensate problem will be created with a mechanical dishwasher, then that must also be vented to the outside. The hood and installation must be approved by the fire marshal where applicable. So that's just a little side note there to be aware of that. Sinks, very important, sinks. At least one hand wash sink must be convenient to each restroom, to each food handling area, and to each warewashing area. These sinks are for hand washing only. Now, if you have a very small shop and your 3-compartment sink is not far from where you're doing your prep, then one sink might be sufficient. But if you have a large area and your dishwashing, warewashing sink is in another room, then you would have to have a hand sink in there and then a hand sink out where you prep. So all of this stuff that is supposed to be shown on your set of plans, and if there's any issues, we can catch it before you spend money or waste money or before everything's finalized. A 3-compartment sink that's an adequate size for the intended operation with drain boards must be provided. A curved floor sink, which is what I just mentioned before, like a can wash, must be provided, or a mop sink. It could be either way. You've got to provide areas for your employees to store their personal belongings. We don't want that stuff, purses and cell phones, keys and stuff stored intermingled with your equipment or single-service articles, and obviously not around the food. Walking and driving surface of the exterior area must be surfaced with concrete, asphalt, or gravel, or similar material to effectively minimize dust. Refrigeration equipment, very, very, very important, especially in the seafood arena. It has to be adequate for the intended operation. It has to be capable of maintaining a product temperature of 41 degrees or below. And refrigerators should be commercial type with an airflow fan. It doesn't require commercial type, but they should be, because those are designed to maintain the 41 degrees or below once the doors are open and close and open and close. And a homemade or home type refrigerators are not designed for that type of operation. Freezers must be capable of maintaining food frozen, obviously, and should hold a product temperature at an air temperature of 0 degrees or below. Very important that each cooler or freezer have a conspicuous thermometer for periodic temperature checks. Okay, another thing that's important to note is that a food safety certification is required now. A permit holder or their designee shall possess a valid certification from an accredited program or shall have verification of attendance. In Alabama, we require, what that verification of attendance means is, if you take a class, for instance, there's 4 accredited programs: Serve Safe, Learn to Serve, the National Registry, and Thompson Prometric. Those are all nationally accredited programs that you can take the manager certification course through. But if you take the test, or you take the course and you fail the test, in Alabama, just by virtue of you having attended the class, we consider you certified for 1 year. If you take the course and pass the test, you'll get a certificate from one of these nationally accredited programs, and your certificate will be good for 5 years. Other agencies to contact before you begin construction, very important, just as a side note. Obviously the fire department, your insurance company. If you're in a municipality, obviously you need to contact the local building and plumbing inspector's office, and then of course the zoning board. And that's it in a nutshell. I know that was very quick, but I'm happy to take any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you, Phyllis. Let's see. I don't see any questions. Okay, I don't see any, but if anyone has a question, you can just type it into that chat box there. I did have one question for Heather. Are you still there, Heather?
Still here.
Okay. Well, I was just curious. I think you had said that y'all do not have any fishermen or aquaculture producers at your farmers market yet.
Not.
You don't. Okay. So what kind of commitment does your market in particular require? Do you have to sign up for a certain number of weeks, or how does that work?
I don't have a commitment requirement.
Okay.
Again, it's a free market, and it's your business to run, you know, however you want to. If you want to build up business, or, you know, it's really kind of up to you. I'm relatively easy. We try to do a month at a time, and we've just gotten started. We haven't been open quite a year. But one thing that is unique is that we are open year-round. Being as south in Alabama as we are, we have a pretty long growing season for all the other products. So if you just apply and get with me, I can I usually try to work with people's schedules and lives and get them into for what works for their farm and their family.
Okay. And another thing I thought of is providing samples. Is that allow that the farmer's market, do they have to be cooked, I guess, since the seafood would have to be packaged?
Yes, actually, you can do samples, and I encourage it to all of our vendors for whatever they have. There, in our rules and regulations, it kind of talks about a little bit of food safety concerns there. You can give food away that is cooked, but you can't sell it without having a commercial kitchen and that type of thing cooked. But for sampling, you certainly can, as long as you use gloves and keep it covered up from the flies and a few little details like that. Sampling always gets people up to you to see your product and ask questions.
Okay, great. We do have a question. This is from Steve. He says, I'm an oyster farmer. I don't have a shellfish processing permit. Am I allowed to sell my oysters in the shell at a farmer's market? And y'all can pipe in and answer, but I believe that all the seafood has to be packaged and processed.
Yeah, you may want to answer that, but I was actually discussing with Nan the other day the fact that you could bring live shrimp or crawfish and sell them without them being processed at all if they were alive. So that was another option. So I don't know about oysters. It seems like the same rules would apply there. Do you have anything to say?
I would check with Nan, because oysters are very unique in that they're eaten, a lot of times they're eaten raw, and there are special growing beds that are allowed to be harvested, and then there's some that are sort of off limits. And I would want to make sure that those oysters came from an approved area, and I would check with Nan on that. Sort of what I meant to mention earlier too is that fish, sort of the dividing line for where the health department gets involved is if like Heather mentioned, if there's any processing that goes on. So, but to be able to catch fish and sell, even if you don't do anything to the fish, you still, to be able to sell, you have to get a commercial fisherman's license from the Department of Conservation. Yeah, and so you would have to have that, like if you said, well, I'm not going to process the fish in any way, I'm just going to catch it and sell it, you still have to have that commercial fisherman's license from the Department of Conservation. Then if you go a step further and say, well, I'm just going to take the heads off, or I'm just going to eviscerate or whatever, then that's when that's processing, and that's when you would have to have the permit from the health department. But oysters are tricky. They're, unfortunately, the bugs that are associated with them are not just they're deadly.
Well,
so I would check with Nan on that one.
And it's more, oyster farming, from my understanding, is still done in the wild. So with that, it's not like you're oyster farming, and I could be wrong, if you're oyster farming, in a pond, but my understanding is oyster farming is done. So it really goes back to our seafood licensing that we have within the market. And you can find all those rules and regulations on our website, coastalalabamamarket.com. It requires a seafood dealer's license, and if you're processing them yourself or bringing them live, you could probably just have a vessel's license and be able to do that. That's what I think. What temperature can you keep oysters at to where they're still alive? Does anyone know?
They're in refrigeration. Oyster bars, they're basically alive. They're not, when they're in the shell, they're still alive, even though they're refrigerated. So, they have to be kept at the required 41 degrees or below.
Nan will know the answer to that for sure, and I will have to pass that to her as well.
Okay, so it sounds like that's right, that you would need a dealer license from the DCNR, and then contact Nan about any further requirements if you're processing.
Correct.
Okay. We have a question. Oh, yes?
I was just going to suggest that you might want to put Heather's last slide up there with Nan's contact information.
Okay. Barry, could you switch to Heather as the presenter, and then she can share that? Okay, we have another question from Antoinette. She says, this is a question for Phyllis. How does food health safety certification dovetail with HACCP? Seems we are asking seafood handlers. Uh-oh. Looks like it was cut off. Is that?
Can you repeat that question?
Okay.
What did you have so far?
Okay, I think she was just asking how does food health safety certification dovetail with HACCP? I guess the HACCP requirements in Alabama, are they the same? Are the Alabama's requirements the same as HACCP? Is what she's asking.
Yeah, the basic HACCP principle is the same. It's just a requirement in the food code that anybody that handles or is a Category 3 or 4 establishment have that food safety certification, and anybody that's dealing with raw animal product is automatically in a Category 3 or 4. The HACCP, the seafood HACCP requirement is part of what FDA requires for anybody that's doing processing of fish product. If that helps, I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Okay. Let us know, Antoinette. And then Antoinette had another question for Heather. She says, are the rules to participate at farmers market the same for vendors selling live seafood? Well, that was kind of what we were talking about a little bit in response to Steve's question, I think.
Live seafood, you do not have to have processed. That would really be the cheapest, easiest way to do it. If you could keep if it was shrimp, if you could sell them live, if you could bring them and keep them live, you do not have to have them processed. It is a straight agricultural product, straight from your farm to the farmer's market, and they could buy them live. Yes, just like you could crawfish.
Okay, great. And let's see. And then Barry has posted the website for the Coastal Alabama Farmers Market down there. All right. Were there any other questions anyone thought of? Or did that answer the questions that people had? Okay, and I will say that some of this is also covered in our legal guide for direct marketing that's available on our website. We cover some of those requirements for selling at farmers markets. And then also Barry posted the survey right there. It's just a few questions. If y'all don't mind taking a few minutes to answer that, it would be very helpful for us. Oh, and there's Nan's number and information there, if that's helpful for anyone. All right, does anyone have any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. We will be posting this on our website in the next few days if you want to share it with anyone or if you want to listen again. But thank you so much to Phyllis and to Heather for giving us all this great information. And thanks to everyone else for joining us. And if you have any questions, be sure to contact me. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye.